Welcome to Bike Racing Without Mercy. I'm Phil Lovett and this is my quest to win an e-cycling race on Zwift. And today I'm hoping the video is going to be really beneficial to everybody because I'm going to be taking you through the 5 Zwift training sessions that I've personally used to build me from 0 to north of 4 watts a kilogram in less than 6 months. And that in turn has enabled me to enjoy being competitive, albeit not winning, Cat A races on Zwift, but also to take on some of the world's more challenging KOMs, plus more recently to be competitive in Cat 4 races outdoors. And today's training video is going to have a slight difference to some of the other training videos I've seen on YouTube because I'm going to be demonstrating each of the sessions. I'm hoping that's going to enable you to see exactly how hard I'm working, especially during the harder efforts. You'll see my beats per minute, I'll be able to describe the lactic acid, and you'll certainly be able to see my pain face as I'm suffering a little on the tougher intervals. But do stay tuned to the very end of this video because there's going to be a twist that I personally hope is going to benefit every one of you and also myself in terms of continuing to build our watts per kilogram. There's lots of training programs on Zwift, and now with just over 1 year of Zwifting under my belt, I thought it might be helpful to provide my personal perspective as to which of the training sessions on Zwift give you your biggest bang for your buck, especially if, like me, you only really have 5 to 6 hours a week to both train and race. Now, over the years of training in the gym, I've learned that complex isn't always the most effective. And my personal preference in terms of the bike training is to really focus on 1 or maximum 2 different training intensities in any one training session. So these are my biggest bang for your buck, covering endurance, through threshold, through VO2 max and anaerobic. And if you want to combine lots of different training intensities into just one session in order to really practice a race, my advice is actually undertake a race itself. And my own personal preference here is to jump on something like one of the Innsbruck flat races where on the leg snapper climb you're absolutely guaranteed some anaerobic and VO2 max action in addition to all the usual threshold and endurance work. And starting today, I'm dialing up the intensity because I'm going to be training my VO2 max energy system, which requires me to sustain hard efforts at well above FTP for 3 to 6 minutes. And today is going to be the Gorby, which comprises 5 sets of 5 minutes, anywhere from 110 to 120% of FTP, followed by 5 minutes of recovery. It's elegance and simplicity personified, but in reality, it is brutal. "50 seconds to go to the end of the first set for 5 minutes on the Gorby. It's hard, but doable on the first set. It shouldn't feel like you can't complete the next 4. That's not to say I will complete the next 4, but at the moment, heart rate's under control. 157, 158 versus my max around 185. "30 seconds away from the end of the third set of 5 minutes at 320. Heart rate 173 versus 166 on the last set. Much harder to talk. Focusing on the breathing and the cadence. And over for recovery. "15 seconds away from the start of the 5th set of 5 minutes at 320 watts. The heart rate peaked in the 4th set at 174, back down at 129 to 130. So that's good recovery. Here we go. Focus on the breathing, nice and deep, mouth open, and the cadence. 95 to 100 is my preference. But also the pull through. "56 seconds to go in the 5th set. Heart rate 176. This is super hard. You can feel the lactic in the legs. The end is in sight on the mile. Nice strong finish, good cadence. I feel like I could go up maybe 2 or 3 watts next time. And we're over and into recovery. And you can hear how I'm breathing in recovery. About 45 seconds into recovery. Just how hard that was on the cardiovascular system. Working at VO2 max intensity to the full. Feels good though. Deadlifts, pre-40-20s. So that was 3 sets of 2 reps on the deadlift and 3 sets of 5 pause reps on a safety bar squat. And that's more than enough to build a bit of strength and power and to be entirely complementary to the 40-20 training, which, as I say, is anaerobic, because all of that helps fire up the nervous system and prepare the muscles for what is going to be quite a hard training session to come. And all in, it's all quite efficient because I hope to have everything completed by 8 AM. I'm about a minute away from the start of the efforts in this 40-20 session, and the efforts commence with some sprints, some best effort sprints. Now, Tim Fulford from Cycling Hub, who knows a thing or two about riding a bike quickly, tells me I definitely need to work on my punch, because a lack of punch is getting me into trouble during races, both outside and inside. If you've got a bit more punch and acceleration, you can get back into the bunch a bit quicker and save energy. So the first 4 efforts are just some 10-second sprints, and it's prescribing 625 watts. I'm going to try and do all of this without ERG, because with ERG, the lag in the power coming up is too high. 14 seconds to go. So Tim says, get into a low gear, about 60 odd RPM, like now. Here we go. And then okay, that was emotional for me. You then get 50 odd seconds of recovery, which I very much need, and we go again. Not having ERG mode on was a huge help there. Normally, by the time ERG gets up to the right resistance, you've got about 3 seconds left on a 10-second sprint. Right, we have some recovery, and I'll come back to the 40-20s in a bit. Now, I've just completed the first set of 5 40-second sprints at 370 watts or more, and again I haven't used the ERG mode. Basically, once again, so I get used to having a kick in terms of the power at the beginning of the effort, and figuring out how to sustain the correct cadence and gearing to keep the power above the 370 watts. And it proved reasonably successful. You do get 30 seconds of rest in the first of the 3 sets of 40-20s. The second set, I've back down to 20 seconds of rest or recovery. Now, in order to have my intervals at 370 watts, I have to manipulate upwards my FTP setting in Zwift. And you do it as follows. You hit menu, and then you hit the little crayon sign, and you can see here on the screen my FTP is showing at 286. What I had to do to get the 370 watt intervals was bring it up to 357. 337. 357 would be a bit emotional. Now clearly my FTP is nowhere near 337. However, Brody Chapman from Tidco SVB, an incredible pro female cyclist, when she prescribes the 40-20s, she prescribes 5 efforts in a block, repeated 3 times, at 130% of your FTP. Whereas in Zwift, when you go to the week 1 of the 4-week FTP builder, the actual efforts are way below 130% of my FTP, hence I have to manipulate them upwards. So this is coming up for the 3rd block on 40-20s, going up through the gears. We're 10 seconds away from the marker now. Trying to have a nice quality 5 intervals. Yep, emotional, but good. Feels uplifting. Heart rate's coming down, nice and fast as well. That's a good sign. And hopefully you can see how this kind of anaerobic training complements the strength work in the gym. And that's why I do it back to back and fasted. So hopefully it's quite clear or obvious as to how this fits into my personal top 5 or 6 training programs on Zwift. Well, the 5 times 5 minutes builds VO2 max capability and also mental strength. This stuff is building your turbo and its ability to sprint in those last 200 meters of a Zwift race, or the ability to cope with an acute and sustained power surge during a race, indoors or outdoors. And really, when we look at my Zwift power stats and the normalized power versus the average power I'm putting out, it is very clear that I need to work on my punch, i.e. my turbo. So I'm hoping that by putting these back into the program without ERG mode on, that's going to contribute handsomely to my racecraft and capabilities. And here's a training program on Zwift that certainly helped me build a good base of fitness. It's contained within a 4-week FTP builder, weeks 3 and 4, and it's called Sub-Threshold, but it's anything but sub. It's a very tough workout. Basically, I got the idea to use this from Emma Pooley on GCN, where she's saying that good climbers learn to kind of sustain their threshold but periodically put in little but brutal bursts of attacks when above threshold. And this sub-threshold training does exactly that. I just completed my first segment of 2 minutes at 280 watts, and right now we're going over for a 30-second burst at 365 watts. We're going to repeat this 12 times without any recovery or rest, hopefully. The last time I did this, I completed the 2-minute intervals at 275 watts and the 30-second bursts at 360 watts. Up the KOM, the epic KOM, where I got a PB. Back down now to 280 watts. And that was quite a while ago, back end of October. So I'm seeing if I can manage any progression today, and I've increased my FTP settings in Zwift upwards to an aspirational 304 watts to achieve these power intervals. I'll report back a little later on. Just completed 4 of the bursts at 365. Heart rate's okay. The reason I like these, they've got a bit of mental fortitude, but also work the bottom end of your zone 4 or top end of zone 3, or here, just below FTP for me because I'm seeking progression. But they also work upper end of zone 5 or zone 6 anaerobic. And it's a really good measure of both endurance, but the ability to punch, bring the heart rate up, and then try and have the heart rate recover while still working just around threshold or below. And that makes it a very challenging workout. I do find it's good for ERG mode because you can really focus on the cadence and even delivery of power. But when you're coming back over to end one of the 30-second bursts, I do find that it's prudent to keep pushing hard on the pedals because there's about a 5-second lag between going over the marker and ERG mode, bringing the power and resistance down. Here we go. Just about to hit the 5th interval at 365. Focusing on the breathing, wide open mouth, air to the core, keeping the cadence nice and high, around about 95. You can see 5.5 watts a kilogram, 5.6 watts a kilogram. Back over, keeping the power down. And now the resistance slackens off a bit. Here. Just about to start the night. Sprint at 365. Now, heart rate came down last time, about 176 to 173. Coming up to the epic KOM as well. Not sure what time I did the epic KOM in. Can really struggle now to keep the pedals turning and clear the lactic out the quads. I accidentally went down the radio mast route. So I had to quickly turn the bike around, hence you see the blue and grey there. I didn't stop though. Final sprint at 365 watts. Now, it's actually harder for the speed and cadence to come right off and then bring it back up. I nearly quit. Looking for a nice strong finish here. Good cadence. 101, it's telling me it's been slower. No, thank you. And over we go. And lag for ERG. I'll report back. Now, because it's over and under stroke sub-threshold training carries the seal of approval of the mountain goat that is Emma Pooley, and also because I see Ed Laverack employing this kind of training on some of his live stream races up out the Zwift. This is definitely going to go back in my own personal program ahead of some of my own climbing events over the course of the summer and autumn. I'm also really happy with the 5 watts of progression there, because the last time I had 5 watts of progression over the full 30-minute training, when I retested my FTP about a week later, it had also gone up about 5 watts. And so this is a really good training, I think, to use in lieu of an FTP session. Now, this is a nice efficient training that can be completed in well under an hour. It just took about 50 minutes there. And it's also something that therefore I personally like to do fasted on just the amino acids, caffeine and water to get the benefit of the fat burn. But I would also add that it's not something I would overuse, because especially as you're pushing the wattage up seeking progression, because you're training close to your FTP on the unders, and obviously the overs are at the top end of VO2 max, bottom end of anaerobic, it's quite hard on the body in the recovery. And so I probably chuck these in maximum, once every 2 to 3 weeks. And when I have tried to do it more than once a week, I've seen no progression whatsoever. And if you do like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and I'd also be super grateful if you'd subscribe as well.